저는 한국에서 프리랜서 기자로 활동하고 있는 라파엘 라시드라고 합니다. 한국 정치 뭐라고 해야 할까? 한국 언론들 지금 다 눈치 보고 있나 봐요.
SNS상, 커뮤니티상에서 지난번에 이제 상당히 유명 인사가 되어버렸어요.
그래요?
윤석열차? 만평 그것 때문에 그거에 대해서 상당히 자기 의견을 강하게 피력하고 하셨지 않습니까?
네.
그래서 이제 우리 이제 언론들이 보도하지 못하는 부분을 해외 특파원 시각에서 보도도 그게 뭐가 잘못됐는지 뭐 그런 것도 말씀해 주시고 그래가지고 하여튼 그래서 저희가 한번 우리나라 지금 현재 언론의 상황 이런 것들이 종합적으로 어떤 문제가 있는지 이런 걸 한번 좀 듣고 싶어가지고 라파엘 기자님이 가장 그래도 그런 부분에서 아주
전문가 아니지만
날카롭고 뭐 아주 예리하게 분석을 해주시고 있는 것 같아서 제가 이렇게 뵙자고 했습니다. 오늘 초대해 주셔서 고맙습니다.
네, 감사합니다.
우선 우리 라파엘 기자님 자기소개 간단하게 좀 해주시죠.
네, 저는 저는 한국에서 프리랜서 기자로 활동하고 있는 라파엘 라시드라고 합니다. 저는 한국에 온 지 거의 2011년에 왔는데 그래서 11년 이상 되었어요. 네.
왜 한국에 오시게 됐나요?
저도 모르겠어요. 학사는 영국에서 한국, 일본학을 공부했고 근데 그때는 조금 학사니까 제가 한국에 대해 공부했을 때 그냥 다 소개였어요. 뭐 introduction, 뭐 한국 역사 소개, 뭐 introduction to 뭐 poetry, history, culture 그런 거 많이 공부했는데 그렇게 깊이 공부하지 않았어요. 그래서 석사도 해야 할 것 같다고 생각해서 한국에서 석사 공부하게 되었어요.
그럼 한국에 와서 공부를 하셨어요? 대학원?
네네네. 그리고
어디?
고려대 대학원에서 2년간, 3년간 그 한국학 석사를 했습니다.
그럼 좀 다 마치셨고 그거는?
네네.
그런데 왜 안 돌아가셨어요?
그러니까 그때도 제가 3년 동안 제 시간, 돈, 그리고 에너지 다 투자했는데 졸업하고 나서 다 포기해야 해요. 만약에 제가 고향에 돌아가면 그러면 한국 관련 일이 뭐 있을까? 그래서 조금 더 한국에 있어야 한다고 생각. even 그때도 뭐 회사도 단일 그런 경험도 없었고 그래서 실제로 그 한국 사회 경험 실제로 해본 적이 없어서 그냥 한번 해보자. 그리고 그때 뭐 홍보 대행사 3년간 정도 다녔어요.
그러면은 이 프리랜서 기자, 프리랜서 리포터로 활동을 하시기 시작한 지는 얼마나 되죠?
이제 5년 이상 5년? 되었어요.
11년 이렇게 생활하시고 이렇게 하셨는데 이제 외국인 시선에서 이제 바라보게 되는 한국 정치의 특성이라든가 한국 정치가 영국하고 내가 살았던 영국하고 뭐가 틀린 것 같다 이건 뭐 이런 부분에 대해서 좀
difficult question. 왜냐면 저는 영국에 있었을 때 사실
정치에 관심
하나도 없었어요. 원래 정치에 대해 관심 하나도 없었고 근데 한국에 와서 매일매일 뭐 조금 interesting 재밌는 아니면 다이나믹한 일이 아니면 재밌는 사건 매일매일 생겨서 그래서 조금 관심을 가지게 되었어요. 그리고 제가 보기에는 한국 정치 뭐라고 해야 할까?
그런 건 영어로 말씀하셨죠?
Yeah. Of course, you have like conservative party and liberal party, but from an outsider point of view, especially from someone like me from Europe, both the Liberal Party and the Conservative Party both of them are actually quite conservative. And maybe, for example, the Justice Party in Korea, maybe Justice Party looks more like the Labour Party in the UK. But overall, politics in Korea seems to be very conservative. There seems to be a lot of fighting between the two parties every single day. And also there's a lot of fan-based politics, fandoms on both sides, whether it's the Conservative Party or the Liberal Party. There's a lot of, it seems that there's a lot of people who absolutely will always follow one party or one leader, and they can never change their mind. And it doesn't matter whether or not that person does a good job or a bad job, they will support that person until they die. And I think it's quite interesting.
그 최근에 이제 우리나라 정치가 팬덤 정치, 뭐 최근 들어서 그런 과거에도 좀 있었지만은 그래도 최근 들어서 그게 좀 아주 심화된 그런 상황인데, 그런 부분이 영국이나 아니면 유럽 이런 쪽은 뭐 별로 심하지 않은가요?
Well, of course there are similar phenomenons in Europe and in the UK, but what I find interesting in Korea is that there seems to be no middle ground. You are either left or you are either right. There's no middle, and you're not allowed to change, you know? So when I came here, to Korea, 11 years ago, people would always ask me, well, which side are you on? Are you on this side or are you on that side? Are you for the government or are you against the government? But even if you vote for this party, you can also disagree with some elements. And even if you did not vote for this party, you can agree with some elements. But it seems in Korea, you're not allowed. You're not allowed. You have to stick. You voted for that person, so you must support everything they do. And sometimes I get a lot of criticism online, because if I say something positive about one politician, then they say, oh, that means you love him. That means you support him. But that doesn't matter. You're allowed to criticize both sides. You're allowed to find the good in both sides. But in Korea, it's very difficult. There's no middle grounds.
외국인 입장에서는 아마 우리나라 정치가 조금 이해하기 제가 봐도 힘들 것 같아요. 현재 상황을 저도 잘 이해가 안 되는 상황이 참 많이 있는 것 같으니까, 특히 이제 최근에 우리나라 정권이 진보 진영에서 보수 정권으로 바뀌었지 않습니까? 이제 보수적인. 근데 이제 그럼으로써 우리 라파엘 기자님께서 느끼는 변화, 어떤 게 가장 틀려진 것 같습니까? 그 진영이 바뀜으로써.
If I could start not from liberal to conservative, but let's go back a bit more. When there was like 박근혜 time, at that time, something felt very wrong in Korean society. I mean, I was a student, but when you see news about people being arrested for criticizing the government, or artists going on blacklists, there was definitely something that felt wrong during the Park Geun-hye time. And even I remember going, if you drove past Cheongwade, there were so many police, and it felt very intimidating. But then, when that was finished, and then we were in the Moon Jae-in era, it did feel a lot more open. And I think everyone will recognize that it felt a lot more open. And the police in front of Cheongwade disappeared, and you could just cycle in front with no problem. And I think a lot of people, including journalists and foreign journalists, felt like they could breathe a bit more, and they didn't have to worry about their jobs. Of course, the Moon Jae-in government had problems as well. We can't say that they were perfect. But it did feel more open. Now we're in a new government, the Yoon Suk-yeol government, and I guess it feels, of course it feels different, especially as a foreign journalist. It does feel a lot more closed compared to the previous government, and I think most journalists will agree with me. It does feel a lot more closed. And there are some certain elements that are of concern, especially, you know, we've seen attitude towards the media, towards, you know, NBC especially, and I think foreign media are not blind and can see that there are some concerning elements. So it does feel a little bit frustrating. And again, openness does not seem to be the case. The government does not seem to be very open to media or to foreign media. And I know a lot of foreign media colleagues are extremely frustrated with the current government.
일단은 그거 이전에 우리 라파엘 기자님을 이제 우리 한국인들 사이에 진보 진영에서 이제 아주 스타급 기자로 이제 올라간 사건이 그 윤석열 차에 대한 그 라파엘 기자님 소신을 막 이렇게 피력 SNS에 커뮤니티에 막 SNS에 막 피력을 하니까 그걸 뭐 퍼나르려고 해가지고 그래서 저도 알았어요. 라파엘 기자님. 정부가 그 지난번처럼 그 어떤 문화예술에 이제 개입을 하는 거지 않습니까? 그러면은 어떤 결과가 나올 것이다, 뭐 어떤 결과를 초래할 것이라는 뭐 걱정이라든가 뭐 그런 생각이 있으신지 하고, 만약에 이런 일들이 영국에서도 일어날 수가 있을까? 뭐 그에 대한 뭐 일어났다면 어떤 일이 벌어질까? 이거에 대한 얘기 좀 해주시죠.
It is difficult to say what's going to happen later on, but the fact that from the very start of this presidency, we've seen these kind of attacks on freedom of expression within 6 months of being president, I think is very concerning. And you know, let's be clear, that student who drew that painting did nothing wrong and is just a student, but because of that they got attacked by the highest members of society in the government, and also the People Power Party also attacked this person, and I think it's very regrettable that this is even happening in Korea in 2022, last year. Of course, we could say maybe it was a one-off, maybe it was a misunderstanding. Of course, we can say that, but I think we can see a trend happening in the presidential office being extremely confrontational when it comes to these issues, and we're seeing the similar pattern, whether it's freedom of expression or freedom of press, with NBC or YTN or other media, and I think this is not a one-off. This seems to be part of a trend. Whether it's deliberate, whether they're doing it on purpose, I don't know. Part of me feels like like maybe some people in the government don't know what they're doing. They don't know that what they say has consequences and has actions. And I think maybe one of the reasons is because a lot of people within the government right now are not seasoned politicians, have never done politics before, and don't realize their words have consequences. So we're seeing a lot of amateurism in the government at the moment. You know, I hope that this isn't deliberate censorship, because that would remind us of, you know, days of dictatorship from decades ago. I hope that the government realizes that they cannot just block people or ban people or tell a student not to draw a cartoon. I hope they can understand that that's not the way democracy works. Of course, it's important to remember that these kind of attitudes can exist anywhere around the world, and in any country we can see these kind of issues, including in the UK, which is not a perfect country and does not have a perfect government. But I think if this issue did take place in the UK, I think we would see huge backlash from people on both sides, from the Conservative Party and the Labour Party, because I think especially in the UK, freedom of expression is so important. It's such a fundamental right for everyone, regardless of party. And I think if a similar situation had happened in the UK, we would have seen strong backlash from both parties. But in Korea, like I said earlier on, in Korea there seems to be this notion that if you support one party, you must support them 100%. And it's a bit unfortunate that just because you are part of this party, you must defend the president. And we saw People Power Party defending the president and saying that this student had plagiarized. You know, I don't think you should blindly support your leader. You can also criticize your leader.
그럼 우리 라파엘 기자께서 이제 조금 더 디테일하게 들어가면은 지난번에 이제 윤석열 대통령이 미국을 가가지고 그 실언, 뭐 욕설, 바이든 뭐 이렇게 했잖아요. 그 실언을 했는데 그런 발언을 우리나라 MBC가 보도를 해서 그걸 가지고 문제를 삼고 국익을 해쳤다 뭐 이러면서 이제 문제를 삼는데 만약에 영국의 수상이 어딜 가가지고 그런 발언을 했다고 그러면은 영국 기자들은 보도를 안 할까요?
No, of course they would report it. Again, I don't think similar to the painting issue. I think both sides of the media would have criticized that because it's pretty clear what he said in that video, and of course the noise is a bit bad, but it's pretty clear what he said. And I think regardless of what color the media has, I think people would have criticized it. And it's, you know, in this case, NBC was one of the first, I mean, they say the first or one of the first to report this issue, and every other media did the same thing. Every other, or almost every other media reported exactly the same thing. It's unfortunate that NBC is being scapegoated for something that was pretty clear. And when the presidential office or the president talks about national interest, you know, what is in the national interest? Is pressure on the media in national interest? You know, and I think it's very easy to use these big words, national interest. It's very vague, and it's also very dangerous to use this kind of very vague words, because anything you do, if you disagree with it, then you can just say it goes against national interest. Yeah, I think it's very dangerous that the government is trying to silence some media in this way.
그래서 이제 그 이후에 그걸 빌미로 해가지고 대통령 전용기 이제 언론사가 비용을 다 부담해서 타는 대통령 전용기 탑승도 MBC만 거부를 했지 않습니까? 그 MBC만 거부한 거에 대해서는 어떤 생각을 가지고 계신지. 그것도 이제 일종의 언론 탄압인데 언론 탄압을 그런 식으로 그 전용기 외국 같은 경우도 아마 전용기 탑승 이런 사례는 없을 거라고 저는 보는데 공산주의 국가, 사회주의 국가 빼고.
I don't think so. Yeah, I don't know of any other cases where this happens. And like I said, this does seem to be part of a trend of putting pressure on people, when it comes to freedom of speech, expression, or freedom of press. I do think that blocking NBC from boarding that flight is 100% pressure on media. People have the right to know what the president is doing. The president is going abroad for some summits and some very important meetings, funded by the taxpayer. So the taxpayer has the right to know what is happening. But when you block them, then I think there's a big concern, because it means NBC is not able to fully cover the events. Of course, they took private flights by themselves, but it takes time and they arrived late, and it's very difficult to follow what the president is doing. So of course, at the presidential office, I think they said the aircraft, we're just providing a service to help you, but it's not a service. This is in order for people to know what is happening. So of course, there is no, in my opinion, and in the opinion of many other journalists, I think many people will agree this is direct pressure on media, and it's intimidation, and it's something that should not be happening in a democratic country.
지금 어찌됐거나 그렇게 MBC가 언론 탄압을 받았는데 그럼에도 불구하고 나머지 언론들이 그렇게 크게 언론 탄압에 대해서 동조를 하거나 이게 언론 탄압이다, 이건 뭐 처음에 기자협회나 뭐 이런 데서 조금 제스처를 취하는 척 하다가 지금 별로 그렇게 뭐 반발도 안 하고 그냥 MBC 자기들 일이 아닌 MBC 일인 것처럼 그냥 치부하고 이렇게 하는데, 그런 부분에 대해서 한국 언론들에 대해서 좀 한마디 좀 해주실 수 있나요?
한국 언론들 지금 다 눈치 보고 있나 봐요.
맞습니다. 눈치 보고 있어요. 그런데 사실 저희 같은 언론은 그걸 안 보려고 이제 이런 인터뷰도 하고 그냥 있는 거 다 얘기하려고 하는 거거든요. 그러니까 이렇게 동료잖아요. 동료들이, 그 다음에 아까 말씀하신 라파엘 기자 말씀하신 이 언론 탄압, 그 표현의 자유, 뭐 이런 것들을 억압하는 건데 그거에 대해서 저항하지 못하고 반발하지 못한다 그러면은 그게 기자들이 해야 될 일이라고 생각을 안 하거든요. 나는 어떻게 생각하시는지.
When this incident happened, blocking NBC, and as far as I understand, the press pool, the presidential office press pool, they released a statement the day before going to Cambodia. International organizations criticized it, but interestingly, the journalists in the press pool did not use that word, and I think it's a little bit unfortunate that we've reached a point where journalists have to be careful about what they say. Of course, journalists should report truthfully and should not lie and should report based on facts. But I think media also has the right to criticize. But now that we've reached a point where media are being careful about what they say, yeah, it's a little bit disturbing.
정부가 이제 자본으로 지배를 하고 있는 언론사들이에요. 그 TBS, YTN, MBC도 일종의 정부가 자본으로 지배를 하고 있고, 그런 언론사들에 대해서 지금 이제 자기 편을 들으라고 이제 압력을 가하는 거거든요, 사실은. 그러다 보니까 이게 다른 언론들은 자기 편이 아니라고, 이 사람들 편을 들 필요가 없다고 생각을 하고 자기들만 살아남겠다는 생각을 하는데, 그것이 결국 다 나중에는 자기한테도 그런 똑같은 일이 발생할 수도 있는 거라고 생각을 하는데, 어떻게 생각하십니까?
I mean, the problem when you put pressure on one media is who is next? Who will the next target be? And then we see the same thing happening with YTN or with TBS. When you put pressure on one, then there might be another one and another one. And that's what we're seeing right now. And I think that's one of the reasons why a lot of media are being quiet at the moment or don't want to report about these things because they might be scared of being the next target. When it comes to NBC, the president or the presidential office said that NBC was being malicious. And then for YTN, now the presidential office is saying YTN is being malicious. So now they're using this new word. It sounds a little bit like in the US, it sounds like when Trump talks about fake news. He has this catchphrase, this is fake news, this is fake news, you're fake news. And in this government, now we're seeing, it looks like the new hot word is malicious. If I don't like you, you're malicious.
자, 이제 마지막 질문 비슷하게 이제 조금 더 좀 이렇게 딱딱하고 하드한 질문이 아닌 좀 재밌는 질문 좀 해보는데 마지막으로 하나만 더 묻고 이대로 이런 상태로 우리나라 이런 언론 환경이 지속된다 그러면은 앞으로 이 한국의 언론 환경 이게 어떤 변화가 올 것인지 어떻게 될 것 같은지 그거 마지막으로 한번 말씀해 주시죠.
It's difficult to tell. It's difficult to tell what's going to happen. But if media are self-censoring themselves and only writing articles that in order to protect their own interests, then I think we're going to see a limited story, a limited media environment. And I think media should have the right to say what they want to say truthfully and based on facts, and also express their own opinions. But if you restrict yourself and don't give your full opinion or the full story, then it might be a little bit concerning. And this is already in a country where media is far from perfect, in a country where media are only interested in clicks and have sensational headlines, sensational stories in order to generate controversy or hype. So already we're in an environment that is far from perfect. But if on top of that, we're going to see media being careful about what they say, then of course I think I and other journalists and other people and just normal citizens will have a lot of concerns about this.
결국은 모든 피해를 입는 거는 국민들이 피해를 입게 될 거라고 생각을 합니다. 우리 그런 의미에서 라파엘 기자께서도 그렇게 말씀을 하신 거라고 생각을 하고 모든 피해가 결국은 앞으로 우리 국민들이 전부 다 입게 될 거라고 봅니다. 그러면 이제 조금 가벼운 질문. 엊그제 혹시 우리 조선일보하고 윤석열 대통령이 이제 인터뷰를 하는 과정에서 한미가 공동으로 핵 핵 뉴클리어 핵 훈련을 하겠다 그랬는데 바이든 미국 대통령이 뭐 질문을 하니까 바로 노 그런 적 없다 뭐 이렇게 노라고 대답을 했어요. 그러니까 바로 또 청와대 대변인이 그렇게 질문을 했다. 노라고 대답이 나오게끔 질문을 했기 때문에 노라고 했지 뭐 진행 중이다 뭐 이런 식으로 얘기했는데 그런 부분들 외교적인 부분 그런 상당히 민감한 부분들에 대해서 어떻게 보면 제가 생각할 때는 그 외교적인 어떤 스킬 이런 것들이 좀 모자라지 않나 이렇게 생각을 하는데 어떻게 생각하세요? 그런 부분은 그게 노라는 질문을 나오게 유도 제가 보기에는 제가 영어가 짧아서 그런지 몰라도 그렇게 유도한 것 같지는 않은데 그 질문 자체가 혹시 들어보셨어요?
Yeah, I saw a little bit of it. Yeah, I don't think. I mean, I think a lot of people in the presidential office are not, like I said earlier on, are not necessarily seasoned politicians, and maybe some people don't know how PR, public relations, works, and communications as well. And I don't think they did it on purpose. I think they just said what they wanted to say or said what was on their mind directly. But politics and diplomacy don't really work that way, and you have to be diplomatic. I think we're seeing a bit of amateurism.
자, 하여튼 오늘 마지막으로 시간 내주셔서 고맙습니다.
네.
예, 하여튼 그렇게 어려운 말씀, 질문, 민감한 질문도 많이 했는데 허심탄회하게 기탄 없이 아주 기탄 없이 말씀해 주셔서 너무 고맙고 감사합니다.
네, 감사합니다.
고맙습니다.